Welcome back to the channel. Let's explore together. Today we're checking out Americans living abroad for the first time you realized America really messed you up. Part 1, but part 2 of reacting to part 1. You follow all that? Anyway, we did part 1. There were some really interesting people and then some people that were a little soapboxy and less interesting as a result, but I'm still here for the slander on the United States of America. Every country has things to slander. I just find in the U.S. people tend to be less aware of them. I like to think that I am not less aware of them, and so far in the first half of this, I was pretty well aware of everything they were talking about, but did enjoy ranting with them about how ridiculous it is, while lamenting the fact that I really think that more people should know this. But let's see if we get caught off guard. What I really want to hear is something that just blows my mind that I didn't know wasn't normal outside of the U.S. That's what I'm waiting for. I don't know if I'm going to get that moment, but it's what I'm hopeful for, because I like learning.
Time that made you realize that America really messed you up.
I pride myself on being an American. I didn't make it out before COVID, but I went to Norway and I fell in love with Norway. Read about it, researched it.
Norway is somewhere that I would love to live. Norway, a couple other countries. I'm bad with names of anything, so I'm trying to remember these countries. I think Denmark, maybe. I'd love to live in Japan. Lots of places out there. The Netherlands, I think, is another one, if I'm not mixing it up with another country. It's hard to leave country, though. Get the right visas and be able to make a living there. But it is something that would be interesting.
And I was like, I've got to visit first. And I only went for a week, and it was for the Infernal Metal Festival. And for the first time in my life, I was actually called an American. They didn't assume where I was from. And there was this beautiful Norwegian elder, and she says, "God påske." And I said, "Beklager, jeg snakker litt norsk." And I said, basically, she said, "Happy Easter." And I said, "I'm sorry, I don't speak a lot of Norwegian." And she goes, "Oh, you're an American." And she didn't worry about her purse. She didn't look at me sideways. And I cried. I cried when I left, because for the first time, I was able to be just an American. I didn't even hardly drink, didn't do anything crazy.
I want to know where she lives. Maybe in the South or the Midwest. That would make a lot more sense. But yeah, that'd be an interesting experience. Now, she's relating it to her experiences as a person of color, is my assumption. I don't think she really said it outright, but I'm assuming that's where she was going with it. But it's interesting because I don't think I've ever been referred to as an American unless there was like a specific context for it, or when I was outside of the country as well. I don't think it's something where people just go around saying, "you're an American, haha," right? I feel like the only time I hear people ask where someone's from is if they have a very thick accent, especially if it doesn't sound like an American accent. But I've never encountered situations where you would meet a person of color and just be like, "Where are you from?" Like, unless there was a reason for you to believe they're not a U.S. citizen, I don't know. So a couple of confusion points as to what exactly she's referencing there, and what situation she would have expected to be referred to as an American. Maybe it's like when people are talking about their heritage, they ask where her heritage is, which, I mean, honestly, most of us, unless you're Native American, your heritage is not the U.S. at some point, right? My heritage is only second generation U.S. My descendants are from Cuba and Puerto Rico. And then my dad's family, I think, is a few generations removed from France or Germany. So, yeah. Anyway, I'm kind of losing my train of thought, but I know from experience, especially in the Midwest and the South, there's definitely a lot of racial prejudice. I just don't know how it would exactly attach to what she was saying. Probably something in what she was saying that I didn't fully catch or go straight into assumptions on.
If you're an American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really...
So during the first lockdown, we have an elderly neighbor, and we would go and check in on her every once in a while and like get her groceries if she needed. And progressively, she started not being
I love when they plug the merch, because the first thing you say is future MILF as these people are telling like their serious stories.
every once in a while and like get her groceries if she needed. And progressively, she started not be able to breathe very well. And we knew it wasn't COVID because she had it before. But like at one point it was like she couldn't even get to the door without like literally not being able to breathe and having to sit down. So my partner decided that we needed to call an ambulance for her and get her to the hospital pronto. And when he told me that he was going to call an ambulance, the first thing that I said was, "Are you sure? Can she afford an ambulance? Like we could just drive her."
Yeah, so I'm not sure. This is going to be another one of those that like you didn't know this. You didn't know it's unusual to have to pay for an ambulance. That's very weird. Like that should strike you as wrong the first time you hear about it. It shouldn't be that you think it's normal. The first time you find out that an ambulance costs money, because I feel most of us when we're younger don't have that assumption until someone tells us. Because you wouldn't think that an ambulance would cost money. You don't have to be taught that an ambulance shouldn't cost money. It's weird that it does, right? You don't expect to have to pay if the fire department hoses off your house, which sometimes you do have to pay for the fire department hosing off your house, if you didn't know. Another one for you U.S. citizens, if you are ignorant to your country. So yeah, this is a terrible thing in the U.S., but it shouldn't surprise anyone. I feel like naturally you would assume that kind of medical care in a civilized society would not cost anything. That would just be, as a society, we all pitch in to make sure that's covered, which is what our taxes are for. And we're taxed heavily enough as U.S. citizens for stuff like that to be covered, but our healthcare system is extremely corrupt and charges more than should ever be humanly possible without too much to show for it when compared to other countries. And so we're taxed in the similar brackets as countries with free healthcare, but we don't have it. It's weird how that works, huh?
And it wasn't until my partner looked at me like, and that it clicked that, oh, that's not a worry here. And then I went upstairs and cried because it really smacked me in the face that as Americans, we are conditioned to not worry about someone's health first, but to worry about whether or not they can financially afford to see a doctor and get help.
An American currently living abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you?
So I moved to Germany in 2018 as a study abroad student, and I had a nice apartment that was on the ground floor with a nice patio, a big door that opened that led to the patio. And I was minding my own business in bed one day. The door was wide open. I had my noise-canceling headphones on, and I heard these really loud banging noises coming from outside that weren't very far. And I'm like, that's not a firework or a firecracker. It can't be. I freak out because as an American, I'm like, I'm about to get shot. Somebody is shooting up all of the student apartments right now. So I call all of my friends and I'm like, did you hear that? Am I crazy? Do we need to call the police and whatever? And they're like, I don't know, but yeah, maybe call your boyfriend who's German and like ask him. So I call my boyfriend and I'm like, watching, we just heard this stuff. Like, what's going on? And he's like, not to worry. Here in Germany, we don't have shooters. Those are probably just firecrackers. And I'm just like, I'm damaged. Like, we are all damaged and freaking out about freaking firecrackers. We think we're going to get shot up.
We already had a story like this in part 1. I don't know where all these people think that they're going to get shot up all the time. I feel like they watch the news too much. And for him, at least he's got an excuse. He had like his noise-canceling headphones on, but his friends really don't. And I guess it's just a lot of people that are driven by fear-mongering in our country. We definitely have an issue with gun violence here. But the idea that it's prominent enough that anytime you hear a loud bang, the normal thing to assume would be someone shooting is off. And it also just comes from a lot of people who have just never actually heard guns being shot. I think there'd be a lot less of a gun problem in the US if more people actually understood guns. With the amount of guns available in this country, which there's nothing you can do about that, the best way to make the guns safer is have people more educated about them. And a lot of people, like, they just don't even know what it would sound like. Now, a firecracker would sound very similar to a gunshot because it's just a small explosion. But the way that they fire off, if it's a firecracker, you would know. Now, if someone's doing like individual rockets, I could see them thinking this. But the other thing is, if you're thinking someone's shooting up the school, you're also going to hear screams, right? I mean, I feel like there's no rationality a lot of the times to the fear. The only time you're going to hear shooting and not hear screams is if it's gang related. Right? Or if it's a homicide where there's only a very specific victim. But anyway, it is unfortunate that there's this many people living in fear in the U.S. like this, but I also don't think it's fully justified if you actually understand the U.S. I think people would be a lot happier and healthier if they had a bit more education. But the gun problem in the U.S. is appalling, and we need legislative reform for sure, but we're also not living in a war zone, and I think a lot of people act like we are.
What is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
Hey, I live in Ireland and I've lived most of my adult life here. I moved to Ireland in 1995. My teenage daughter was born here many years ago, and when she was born, I spent 2 nights in hospital before she was born. I had an emergency cesarean section, and then I spent a further 6 nights.
And I'm assuming that the story here is that you didn't pay for it. Obviously. Why would you? And if you do, it should be a very small bill. I don't know why anyone in the U.S. would ever think otherwise.
Afterwards,
I mean, I know it's not what we expect here, but I mean, going somewhere else, why would you expect anything less than what makes sense?
the total cost to me was 0. I kept asking them, like, are you sure no one wants my credit card? Like, do you want my details so you can send me the bill? And they would just like laugh, like, oh, you're American. There's no bill. So 8 nights in hospital, emergency procedure, 0 bill.
American currently living
Yep.
abroad, what is one time that made you realize that America really messed you up?
Okay, I have another one. When I was studying in Spain, we had our orientation the first week of classes, and our program director sat us all down and had to
I feel like all these people who have been abroad, or aside from that lady before, they're all student type. And I would think that if you're a college student, you'd be more aware to these issues. So I'm wondering if this is disingenuous on most of these people's parts. Like they already knew this, but they wanted to make a TikTok about it like they didn't already know. I don't know. It seems unlikely that privileged college students going on expensive trips abroad, which has been like 90% of the people from this video, seems unlikely that that demographic has no idea how off certain things in the U.S. are, especially since they're going to liberal arts colleges, which their favorite thing to do is talk trash about the U.S., even to extents that are not fair at all, and act like all these other countries are way better than the U.S. when all parts considered is not true at all. The U.S. is still one of the, and arguably in a lot of ways, the best country to live in the world, because every country has their crap. But to act like none of them know these major issues, and the first time they found out about it was on a trip abroad, it seems super unlikely, but I don't know. Maybe they live lives of privilege that extend beyond what I could have imagined, so far as sheltering themselves into thinking that everything that happens is hunky-dory. Well, I guess that wouldn't be so much of a life of privilege. I mean, they seem like privileged individuals based on their abilities to do these trips abroad and so forth. That's not cheap. They're all Americans, right? Nothing's cheap in America. Well, that's a lie, but you get what I'm saying. Actually, most products are cheaper in America. But anyway, I digress. So it's strange to me that they would be this naive to the country compared to the rest of the world, when liberal arts students are usually spending most of their time studying the rest of the world. Especially if they're going to go abroad, they would have spent a lot of time prepping. I don't know. Something doesn't add up, kids.
explain our health insurance to us and how it worked. And basically it worked that you paid like €1,000 for the semester and you got health insurance, like free health insurance for everything, covered everything.
€1,000 for a semester is not exactly that cheap. That's not good. Health insurance in the U.S. for most people, for one healthy college-age student for a couple months, it's gonna be a lot less than that, with very minimal deductibles even. And that's not a good deal if that's what she's telling us.
And she had to sit us down, and she had this big group of Americans in a room, and she was like, listen, if you are sick, go to the doctor. And we were all like, yes. And she was like, no, like Americans don't go to the doctor. You won't go to the doctor when you're sick. So I have to tell you every year to do this. And still kids will just put off going to the doctor because you're used to just like pushing through illness. No matter what it is, I don't care if it's a cold, go to the doctor.
Yeah, because we have to, because it's expensive, and everybody should know how crazy it is. Now, sometimes people just avoid the doctor because it's a hassle. That's me. I have pretty good health insurance. It's expensive, but I pay for it, so I have it. And the only thing that keeps me from the doctor is just not wanting to go. And that's true for a lot of Americans. When you have decent health insurance, it's not as expensive as you think, but you have to be able to be in a position to pay for that, right? Or have a really good job that gives that to you. That's the problem in America. It's not that you can't get reasonable insurance and not have to pay, 6 figures out of pocket if you get cancer. It's that to have access to that is not easy. Those huge hospital bills that people talk about in the U.S., if you have health insurance, you're not paying it. But your health insurance is so expensive because of the bill is getting paid by someone, whether that's the insurance company or someone without insurance has to front it themselves. Someone is paying that stupid bill that the hospital writes up, which is why health insurance is $5, $6, $7, $8 plus $100 a month if you have really good health insurance for a full family or you're not in good health. Anyway, the more you know.
And you had to actually like spell that out for us.
What's a really weird thing that your body does that you're not sure?
These are previous videos. So I guess we'll grab a thumbnail once again. We'll just do it thumbnail with the prompt girl as we close out. So I think there's a part 2 of this. I don't know if you guys are ready for more of me ranting and raving in this manner, but if you are, that means you're at this part of the video. So this is the part of the video when I'm going to ask you, do you want me to continue this series? I'm enjoying it. I would love to see a little more seemingly genuine nature out of a lot of these people, as well as more insights, but I'm still enjoying the conversation it starts anyway. They're kind of all hitting on the same like 3 things though over and over again. I'm scared of guns and health insurance is expensive, which are both valid issues, but I'm really wanting someone to break the mold and talk about something more interesting. It probably, something more eclectic, something even more minuscule. I feel like everyone's trying to have this big heroic moment, but I would find it more interesting to find the annoying grievances of the US that aren't normalized outside of the US. Like, take Japan, for example. Japan's got this ID and signature system, the stamp system, that is insane and expensive. And if you're from Japan, you would have no idea that that's not normal outside of Japan. I feel like more of those kind of examples, but the US versions of it would be a lot cooler. So if you guys know a video like that maybe, or if part 2 gets more like that, also let me know below. I don't know how many people are even seeing this, but if you are, please, in the comments, let me know if there's videos like what I'm talking about, or if part 2 of this is worth it, or what you want me to do. And until we explore again, I'll see you next time.